Hey everybody, Eric Schweitzer here with The Gamer, and I'm here today with the Prince of the Gamer, George Foster.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
We're here to talk about Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Something we were both really excited about. I got to play
Hell
this
yes.
at the Ubisoft Connect last summer. I got to play up through the first boss, and we did a video back then, and we were like, "Wow, I can't believe they're doing this with Prince of Persia, and they're doing a Metroidvania, and it's got a lot of style." So I think we were both pretty hyped on it. But now that you've played the whole thing, George, what's the overview? What's your broad opinion on it?
So, going into this year, um, I was like, right, Prince of Persia, this is probably my most anticipated game. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is going to be the one. This is the George game of the year. Um,
In January.
well, Hi-Fi Rush did it last year. It's possible. I don't think history's repeated itself there. I think this is a really, really good game. I've given it a 4 out of 5. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's secured number one place, and anything else is gonna have a tough time like overtaking it. Um, the main reason for that, I'll start off with a negative, I guess. The story. You and I have talked about this a bit before, Eric. The story is just big load of nothing, big nothing burger.
Yeah, there really is nothing there. It has such a good setup, though,
Yes,
right?
so intriguing.
So this is like, and it starts out in this big, really cinematic war that shows a lot of like depth of this battlefield that you're fighting through, and you become your character Sargon. Has this big hero moment, saves the day, and it introduces this group of warriors called the Immortals,
Yeah,
who are like the protectors of the kingdom, right?
they're the
And you,
Avengers of Prince of Persia.
yeah, and you don't. They all get introduced one at a time during this intro mission, and you think that the game's gonna really like give each of them, like make each of them important in a way, like
Yeah.
at least make each of them a real character.
Nah, they're boss fights, son. That's it.
There's some of them are right, not even all of them.
Yeah, not even all of them. This is the thing. Like Sargon himself, I like him. I don't think he's not as iconic as the prince. Like I'm not gonna go around thinking, wow, unnamed prince. Like I really liked him. He's fine, but I just feel like there's this plot thread where he's trying to discover what is at the end of your blade. Like this is a question that comes up a few times, and it just never really goes anywhere. Like it's kind of vague. It's kind of like you could add anything to the end of that, like hope, friends, justice, glory, and like that would be the answer because it kind of just
Yeah,
seems like the game goes, you know, nowhere with it. It's such a shame because the setting, they're on this mountain that's like cursed and it's just stuck in time. And there's this one scene really early on where you run into like a dead version of one of your friends and you pick up his bow and then you find him alive and he's like, that's just one of the many possibilities here. And I was like, holy crap, that's cool. Like anything could happen. You could run into alternate versions. You could see like loads of different like people stuck in time and being stuck in like different scenarios. It just doesn't really do that.
but it
Like
doesn't do any of that.
no,
Yeah,
you see it
that
like
is,
once or
yeah,
twice.
that's the craziest thing about this game. It's just like how many cool ideas it introduces and then goes nowhere with any of them.
Yeah,
It's
but
just kind of a Metroidvania, like, but a lot of that stuff does come alive in the combat.
oh yeah,
Um, so okay, so let's finish off with the story stuff, and then we'll sort of move into the gameplay. So, like as you mentioned, it takes place on this mountain that's said to be stuck in time, and so all these like weird timey wimey shit is happening. The Prince Hassan has been kidnapped by mysterious enemies, and you and the Immortals are going to go rescue him, and then you find yourselves trapped here on Time Mountain.
yep.
Um,
And conspiracies galore. I will say this: don't if you're trying to go into this blind, do not watch the story trailer that Ubisoft released at the Game Awards because like there are so many things that are like this is such a big surprise, and you just see it in the trailer. Like there are scenes from like the end of the game there, and that kind of ruined it a bit for me. So maybe that's it. Maybe I wasn't so
yeah,
surprised by anything, but
but even then, there really is just not much meat on this bone.
no, I don't think
Uh,
I don't think it needs to be as such. But if it was just trying to be gameplay, it'd be fine. But because there's clearly an effort here, like I could feel that the developers wanted me to be like, "Wow, Sargon's a cool guy. Like he's the new Prince of Persia protagonist that we're all going to remember." I could feel them wanting that
It's
and
just
wanting
that,
us to care, but I just don't.
yeah, the character design way outpaces the narrative.
Yeah,
So, like,
100%.
he has a very iconic look,
Yeah,
and the art direction of this game is phenomenal.
yeah, I
It's
agree.
just like the parts, the narrative design. I will argue of at some point in our conversation, the level design just can't keep up with how like iconic the art direction of this game is.
Yeah, I agree because there was a lot of conversations before launch, like, well, there's a lot of toxic conversations before launch, like, this game looks like a game from the PS1 and just stuff like that, just from idiots who have no idea what art direction is and like a lower budget. I think for the most part it looks great. I love
Yeah,
the designs, I love the world, I love the aesthetic. I think it really suits Prince of Persia. I will say that some of the cutscenes are a bit wonky. Like I know you specifically you ran into like quite a few glitches, which I
yeah.
didn't, but there are a few times I was like, this sort of feels like it is a bit cheaper. Like I could tell that a few times.
I had some really weird stuff. I had like bosses that would stop taking damage.
Oh, that's the worst.
That one is real
In
bad.
this
Yeah,
game, that is painful.
yeah. I had like walls that were clearly supposed to break that just wouldn't break.
Yeah,
Yeah, stuff like that. But yes, it looks phenomenal and it plays phenomenal too.
yeah, 100%.
So let's get into like the gameplay and the combat and stuff because it feels great to play this one.
Yeah, I would say I know you're particularly jazzed about combat, but I just want to give a shout out first to the platforming, the heart of any Prince of Persia game. It's phenomenal here. It feels so good. There are so many scenes I can think of where it's just like it felt impossible. Some of the situations I was getting through, I was like, "Wow, this is really tough," which is exactly how you should feel in a Prince of
Hmm.
Persia game. I kept feeling like maybe this is because I'm a massive Rayman nerd, and I'm fine with that, but I could feel the pedigree of those games because it's Ubisoft Montpellier. I was like, yes, you guys just know how to make characters move. Like everything feels so good,
Yeah,
especially when you start getting some of the time powers. Like as soon as I got the double jump, I was like, yep, I love it. I'm in.
yeah. The amount of control that you have on the character and the way the complexity of his animations,
Yeah,
in particular, the way like you transfer momentum through his body when you run to the left but then jump to the right and sort of do this like reverse little back backflip move. Like it
it's
just
tight, right?
feels, yeah, it's super tight.
Yeah,
And um I guess there's no reason to like sort of bury the lead, but the main mechanic, the sort of this game's take on the rewind is the shadow marker,
yeah,
which is everything. It's like it's such a novel mechanic that is a big part of platforming and combat and is sort of unlike anything in any other game, right?
yeah. It's kind of the best way I could use to describe it. It's like a combination of rewind, but only for you. Like it's
Hmm.
it's a teleport rewind basically. So how it works is you don't get it for is it the second or it's one of the second or third time powers, but you press a button and then Sargon like sort of an imprint of him is marked on the world and then you can press it to go back. So it kind of teleports you, but as you
It's a
get further into the game you realize like there are platforming challenges where you have to land where you know you need to be next and then wait for an obstacle to pass and then use it and you're still keeping the momentum. Like it's nuts.
Yeah, it is a. It looks like a teleport, but you have to think of it as a rewind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a great way to
And
put it.
and because it is this snapshot, because it's this like save state, it holds all of Sargon's potential energy too,
Yeah,
which is really like complicated in the best way. And the more you experiment with it, the more you learn about all the crazy things you can do with it. So like what? So like here's like a really simple example of how it works. Like you
Yeah.
have a charge attack, right? If you hold the attack button when you let go, he'll do this like master sword beam attack, right?
Yeah.
So if you hold the charge button, charge up, and then drop your shadow, when you release, you'll do the charge attack, and then when you rewind to your shadow, he'll also do the charge attack because he was charging it up.
I had never tried that. I have mostly just used it for platforming. Like you said that the game taught you like a few tricks. Is that one of them?
Yeah, so it when if you go back, there's like a hub city where you do your shopping, which we'll need to get into too.
Yes.
Um, and there's a trainer there who will teach you techniques, and that's one of the first things he'll teach you. But once you understand the way that the shadow stores potential energy, it it changes your whole approach to combat. Yeah, it's really like if you are doing a flying kick through the air and you make your copy, when you rewind, you will finish that flying kick through the air, even if you already finished it once. You know.
Yeah. See, I can visualize it as you're saying it, but I can feel like if you haven't played this, it sounds complicated. It's not. It's in practice, it just works really well. And
Yeah,
it's essential. It is essential. There are boss battles in the game, really really tough ones, which we'll talk about a bit later. And there are times when you can't go without using it. It is that important to the game.
it is a it it's an award worthy like signature mechanic. Like
Yeah,
it is incredibly well done, and it's one of those things that you get as much out of it as you put into it, because you can really, for the most part, kind of just like mash the attack button through this game, and like if you can like dodge and parry, you'll be fine.
the George technique. Yeah, like I really, you have to use it for certain platforming bits. So like you can't ignore it. But in combat, that's as inventive as you want to go with it, which is one of the great things about the combat. It is very open. Like there are
Yeah,
so many techniques. Like
but if you really want to show off, you can like charge up an attack, drop your shadow, and then slide to the other side of the enemy and punch him towards your shadow. And as he is falling back, rewind and finish your attack and hit him back the other way. So you can like kick an enemy into yourself. It's
man,
so cool.
yeah, it is.
The combat system is so cool because of what the shadow adds to it.
Yeah, even without the shadow, because like I said, I was more about counters and combo attacks and getting people up in the air. Like I can't describe what it feels like. It really reminded me of like an old game, but it feels fantastic. Like Prince of Persia has never really had good combat, like ever. It's more been about like jumping over people and kicking them around. But this, like, it's as strong as the platforming, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you mentioned, a lot of the shadow stuff works into platforming and puzzle solving. There's these really cool puzzles where it will time loop several times. And
Oh,
so you'll have to
yes.
go,
They were tough.
so you go stand on a switch, and then you go back to the beginning of the loop, and you watch your ghost go stand on the switch to activate a bridge so that you can go across the bridge and pull a switch, and then you'll reset the loop again, and your first two loops will go stand on the switch and pull the thing, and you have to figure out how to use all your loops to solve puzzles
Yeah.
while also incorporating your shadow marker into it in some of them too.
The worst one for me was when you're in this room and you've got these two switches you have to hit by throwing an item at them. So one switch causes some walls to appear. So you jump off the wall, and then you have to press a shadow above the other switch, jump down, take the item away, revert back to your shadow, chuck it down to open up the thing, and then get it again to chuck it back up. Like I was. It's the puzzles are so good. Like describing
Yeah,
it makes me
the
sound
puzzles
stupid.
they're really good. And you also, the other really cool power is what's the one where you can pull things into
Fabric of
a
Time. That one
void.
is super cool. Oh no,
Yeah,
Dimensional Claw. Dimensional Claw. That's the one.
dimensional claw. Yeah, so you can like grab an enemy who's about to hit you and put them in a void, and then drop them somewhere else so that instead of hitting you, they hit another enemy.
Yeah, and you can just grab like projectiles back. So someone shoots something at you, like, nope, that's mine. Send it
Put it,
back.
yeah, put it in your pocket dimension.
It's so experimentative. Like I feel like there are all these things that we're discussing. Like some of them I hadn't even thought to do. And like I finished it. I've played beyond the credits, and I'd never really thought to grab an enemy and just send him somewhere else. Just because the combat on its own, if you don't utilize that stuff, it still feels great. But
Yeah,
the
but
more we
there's so
talk
much
about it, I'm
depth
like,
to it.
yeah, definitely go
Yeah.
out and use the time powers more in combat. They're awesome.
It has such a. I think Smash players are going to really vibe with this.
Yeah,
Because, like, if you're into, like, frame data, you can do some really cool stuff
yeah,
with the shadow marker. Because it makes you think about the way that you press a button and then what happens after you press that button, you know? Because there's a certain amount of time and a certain amount of frames in which an attack is executed. You know, that's just like
yeah,
the animation of an attack, and the way that the shadow marker works, it makes you think about what that animation does, how long it takes, and how you can insert other inputs in between that animation. It's so cool. Yeah, I think like for platform fighter like Smash fans, they're gonna be able to do a lot of really cool stuff with this.
yeah. And if you think like Prince of Persia, his main mechanic was rewinding. Like this is so much better than that. Like not to bash old Prince of Persia games, I love them all, but I don't know.
It's
I think
way
this
more
is infinitely
interesting.
more
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
way more interesting. Yeah. Okay, boy, there's a lot I want to talk about still.
yeah. This game is dense,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
So I want to talk about the level design because I'm a big Metroidvania guy and you're not, right?
No, I'm not. My experience with Metroidvanias is very limited. Um, I didn't really get on with Metroid Dread, just to name
Okay.
like the first one that comes to my head. Hollow Knight, never really been big on. So
Yeah.
you're the master here. You take it away.
Okay, so it is a Metroidvania. I'm certainly not denying that.
Yeah.
And there are so many Metroidvanias and so many different approaches to Metroidvania that um my criticisms of the level design in particular are going to make me sound like a purist, and I don't mind if that's the label you want to throw at me. Um when Hollow Knight and Super Metroid are at the top of the pyramid when it comes to like the hierarchy of Metroidvania level design, that sort of like interconnected exploration focused, just like the brilliance of how those maps work.
Right.
This is not on that level, not even close.
Tell me why. Tell me why. From a I guess non-purist perspective, I really enjoyed the world. I enjoyed exploring it. I enjoyed opening it up and connecting bits. My only complaint would have been that the fast travel points are way too far. Backtracking is annoying as hell in the first few hours. But
They
that's my
are.
basic view. That's my like non Metroidvania mind. So you hit me with the deep stuff.
So when you launch the game, like when you start a new game, it asks you if you want to play like exploration mode or guided mode, which
Hmm.
is a thing you'll find in Ubisoft games lately. Avatar did the same thing,
Oh, it did. Yeah.
um, which is awesome. And when you think about that for an open world game, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, oh, okay, so instead of just putting a bright glowing quest marker on in front of my face, it's gonna just let me sort of find my way and use environmental clues and context and actually listen to dialogue when people tell me where to go and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. For a Metroidvania, though, it means something a little bit different, I think, because the level design has to be strong enough and complex enough to warrant like not having quest markers, and
Right.
this game, whether you play with the quest markers or not, makes zero difference because there's only one way to go, and it's forward. And
Yeah.
that's like such a like core part for me as a purist. That's such a core part of the Metroidvania experience that's missing from this game because it is I found it impossible to get lost in this game because you just go to the next room. It is a very linear experience. There's a point where it says you need to go get these two things that are in two different places and you get to choose which one you do first. But other than that, you are just following a linear path. And that linear path does sort of snake through different zones that connect together, and you'll be like, "Oh, I've been here before a couple times."
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're just like, "This is this biome. I'm going to move through it. Now I'm in a new biome, move through that one." And you follow this very linear path, which is like I think a core tenet of Metroidvanias is missing from this game.
Yeah. I played with guided on the whole time because, like I say, not my forte. I didn't. I always knew a general like area I needed to go. There were a few times like quite late into the game where the path isn't so obvious. So there's one example: you're trying to get up to this area, quite high up on like the upper side, and instead of going up, or maybe you could also go up, but the way I had to go was like through this really difficult platforming gauntlet that kind of snaked under and then led up. And I remember thinking that was cool. That was like unexpected. I didn't expect to go that way, but I still really was just moving through like one area. It's just not where I expected it to be. So
Mm.
I get that. I understand that. Like even without being a big fan of Metroidvanias, I guess I understand what you mean.
Yeah, even if you did not have the quest markers on, you would still have known where to go.
Yeah. Does it mark on your map still like unexplored areas when
Yeah.
you have the okay. Yeah, then you just think to go everywhere, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah.
and the game's not huge. It's certainly not Hollow Knight sized. How long did it take you to finish it? Like 15 hours?
16 hours to beat just like the main quest with a medium
A
amount of
little
side
like
quests done.
a little side quest. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you want 100% it, then you will get a a more rewarding Metroidvania exploration experience
100%.
because you'll have to like hunt down all the secrets and stuff. But as a first pass through, it's much closer to Dread than Super Metroid.
Yeah.
It's very linear.
Okay, so
Unfortunately for me.
so I have to ask you, do you want to 100% it? Does it drag you in enough that you want to explore everything?
Um,
For
yeah,
me it's a yes.
I
I'm
think
fully in.
so. I think so because the few things that I've went off the beaten path to look led to some pretty cool little secrets and puzzles and stuff
Yeah.
that made me want to see what was baked in. So yeah, I probably will 100% this one because I don't think it'll take too long. The one thing that's getting in the way for me is the progression.
Right, I knew you wouldn't be a fan of this.
I'm not at all. I think that this game's approach to like currencies and upgrades is the worst shit about Ubisoft games and like AAA games. It is such a like tacked on, uninteresting, uninspired. This is how games are made, so we'll make it this way. When clearly they had bigger ideas with like Shadow Marker proves that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to incremental stat upgrades, just like go farm monsters to get their coins and then buy +2 damage to your like, dude, are you serious? It is
Yeah.
awful. That I hate that stuff so much. It does not belong. It doesn't belong in a Metroidvania, first of all, at all, and it doesn't belong in a game that has this many good ideas.
Yeah, I again this is another point where I might disagree with you. I didn't really find it like that. Like most of the times if I found the main one that I remember trying to find was upgrading the swords just to give them more damage. And I guess a Metroidvania shouldn't have you finding
No,
currencies to do that. It should be a thing you find in the world. Like that speaks through to me, but I didn't mind how it was done here because the Lost Crown is such a challenging game. Like it is like rock hard sometimes that I didn't mind going to explore a bit more to feel like I'd upgraded myself enough to go take on a challenge.
I man,
But I
I
see what you
know
mean, especially
it.
for Ubisoft, because it is such a Ubisoft thing to be like +5 damage to this and +2 to your amulet. Like, I know that's annoying. I know that's one of their things, but it didn't feel as egregious to me.
I know I get I get your argument, and I know that it makes it a more approachable game. So I know that the way this I know I sound like one of those Dark Souls losers when I say this, but the combat should be balanced in a way that is both challenging and fair. It
Yeah,
should be rewarding to overcome, and you should get the sense that the designers made a very intentional boss fight. A very like this is the way it was designed. But when you allow the player to just go farm and grind upgrades to their base strength, it totally undercuts the entire design of the combat encounters because now you get to decide exactly how hard or how many hits it takes or how many hits you can take. Like,
yeah, yeah. I understand that. Personally, for me, I enjoyed that. I liked having that level of customization. But I can see where you're coming from, especially with a Metroidvania, that it's like intrinsic to the genre that you should be able to just find an upgrade. You should find specific
it
weapons that are different. You know?
yes, it should be like bespoke tools, and then it's up to you to learn how to use those tools best to overcome the challenges that are put in front of you.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be like literally go grind XP to get stronger. That's like that should not be this kind of game, in
yeah.
my opinion.
I think that's
Um,
that's where we're diverging. Where it's like I'm viewing it, you're fully Metroidvania'd up. I'm viewing it more action platformer in an open, explorable world that interconnects, avoiding the word Metroidvania. You know, maybe that's where I'm having the difference of opinion.
yeah, and I mean that's fair. Like, no game should be beholden to the conventions of its genre. But the thing is, the conventions of the Metroid genre are what make Metroidvania so good.
Yeah,
And I think the ways that this departs make it a worse game. So it's not because it's not a Metroidvania. It's like, boy, I wish it had done the Metroidvania things because it would have been a stronger game.
yeah,
Having four different currencies,
yeah.
and
There's a lot.
are you
There's yeah,
really? And most like it it's it becomes a lot less exciting to go 100% the game when the vast majority of what I'm collecting is just different kinds of currencies.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I feel that. I feel that.
the the thing everybody was talking about with the map marker screenshots, I don't remember what that's called.
Memory shards.
Memory shards. Such a
I think.
great idea. That's so cool. So at any point you can just hit down on the D-pad, it'll make a screenshot and put it on your map exactly where you are, so that later when you look at a map marker you don't have to just remember why you put, a triangle on the map.
Yeah,
You actually can see a screenshot and be like, oh, that's why I need to go back there. That's cool. But it starts you with like 12 of them, and then throughout the game you have to find more memory shards so that you can use this. Like,
that yeah, that is silly.
that's
I
so
thought
silly.
that's
That's
such a good
pure
idea for
AAA crap, right?
yeah.
Like,
That's like that's causing difficulty the way there shouldn't be, especially with such a feature that's like that. That should be a core feature for Metroidvanias
just a
going
thing you
forward.
can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a weird decision.
And I get maybe there's a technical limitation where you can't just do it 100,000 times.
But then you should
Because
just start with the most you can do, right?
yeah,
Like,
you should
yeah,
just start with the maximum number you can use. Yes,
yeah,
that's a silly way to like add another upgrade path. Yeah, that stuff did really get under my skin. It just felt like, oh, like it just felt like the kind of like boardroom mandated, this is how we make AAA games kind of stuff.
yeah. I like I said, I see your points. I see them better now that we've actually talked about it compared to like just messaging about it. Like I
Yeah.
understand more what you mean. I think I'm less harsh on it because I'm just not as familiar with the genre. Like
Well, you
I
should play
am.
Hollow Knights. It's
I
masterpiece.
tried it. I tried it. I couldn't get into it. Probably before Silk Song, so I've got like 50 years, right?
That's true. I mean, if you like this, you'll definitely. I don't see why you wouldn't like Hollow Knight.
Yeah. I think for me, what stands strongest about the Lost Crown, and it stands like so strong, like peak of Prince of Persia strong, is the platforming and combat.
Yeah.
Like this is the series at its best. Like this is Sands of Time level good. The story pretty weak, kind of nothingy,
Yeah.
kind of a letdown. And then I feel like for me, the Metroidvania stuff, it didn't really add or detract. For me, I know it's detracting for you, but it's just there for me. And then progression's just Ubisoft, you know.
We didn't. We've talked. We've said the word boss fight a lot, but we haven't really talked about any of them. Do you
Oh
want to?
yes, I do.
Yes. Do you want to talk specifically about some of them because they're bangers?
Yeah. So Eric earlier said Dark Souls. Uh, not to be a meme, but this is the Dark Souls of 2D platformers. If you ask me, these are so tough.
That's
Uh,
still Hollow Knight, but yeah, go ahead.
okay, fine. The first one you fight, well, not there's like a tutorial one, doesn't count. Everyone can beat that. Don't worry about it. The first one you fight is a Manticore, and this is the one that we both fought our demos that we played.
We showed that in our last video.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the fight against a big Manticore. I forgot the name of it. And when I went in, I was like, this can be easy. Obliterated. Like first go, took like 4 bits of damage, gone. Like you need to know your counters. For that one, you don't have time powers, but the ones you do, like you have to use each one that you've unlocked.
Yeah.
So you have to master putting a shadow thing in the air and then going back to it when an attack tries to hit you. You have to know when to rush. You have to know when to counter. You have to use like the grapple hook thing to reach up into the sky. Like they are just they're epic as well. There's one I won't spoil. It's like middle of the game. It is so cool. It is so climactic. Like it was the only time I can think of in the game where I was like, I care about what's happening to these characters. This is awesome. That it never happens again. Never care again.
Yeah, they are like multi-phase, super cinematic. The boss fights are just top notch. I wish there was more. There's not that many.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I was done. I was like, you know what? If I can just beat this game, if I can get past these bosses, I'm fine. Don't hit me with any more. They're too hard.
um, yeah,
That
you.
lion one that we've talked about this before privately, but there's one boss around God a few hours into the game. You're told go in 2 different directions, like Eric mentioned earlier. If you go to one, you get some super hard puzzles. They're tough, and then if you go the other direction, you go up against this boss. That's this like warrior on top of a lion, and I swear to God, it must have taken me like 6, 7 tries.
It is such a troll fight too,
Yeah,
because like you'll learn a counter and then they'll introduce a new attack to like interrupt your counter. Like
yeah,
yeah, like it has like 5 phases and it just keeps adding new attacks on top of the attacks you know. So it'll do something that you recognize and then do something new right after that just to screw you up. It is
yeah,
such a hard fight, and you can't, like we were alluding to before, like you have to counter every hit and dodge other hits, but also you have to use the shadow marker to rewind past certain things that you just could not counter or dodge. Like it's like adding a third, like we've always had dodging, and then at a certain point we got parry, but now there's a third thing, which is rewinding. And that's not going to be a thing every game has, or maybe no other game will ever do it. But yeah, but Lost Crown has 3 different like ways to avoid damage, and you have to use all 3 of them for different kinds of attacks.
you do. And there are times when I'm holding the controller, I'm like, I don't think my fingers can move this way. Like there are so many specific
Yeah.
things to do.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like it's, it came out of nowhere. I was not expecting Prince of Persia to be this tough. Like, but I love the fact that it is. That's one of those things where you were saying earlier about feeling like corporate, kind of boardroomy, and I agree with the sections you've highlighted. But the challenge to me feels like, damn, they had a vision. They had a vision for how these fights were going to go, and you cannot do them unless you learn. And I love
Yeah.
that. I love that with a game. It's not just like, well, if you buy the super pre-order bonus weapon, you've got like enough damage that they're easy. No, no matter what, they're tough, and
Yeah.
they're so good. They're the highlight of the game for me. They were fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. The boss fights are incredible. Yeah. Top tier. Yeah, that line thing. I'm remembering now. There's one where they split to either side of the arena. The girl throws her thing at you. You have to parry that, and then turn around as the lion runs at you. You have to dodge over. You have to like fly over him, and then when they join back together, they come at you with a spinning attack, and you have to place your shadow, and then once it gets close enough, rewind to the other side of it. So you have to use all three like counters at once.
And that's not even counting like the damage you have to do to continue on in the fight. Like they don't stop and go, "Whew, I'm tired now." Like you don't really
Right.
get that chance. You have to be on the ball.
You have to get your hits in when you can. And
I'm
then she
super
takes
excited.
you to a shadow dimension
Oh, that's the
and
worst
attacks you
bit.
from three sides at once.
That bit sucked. Yeah,
Man.
like I saw they did these like social media videos. So like timing's everything in this game. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's about time. Nice pun. And then I'm like, no, timing really does matter. Like you need to counter. You need to know time.
I broke an Xbox controller on this game.
Jesus.
Yeah,
What?
I jammed my right trigger so hard that it sticks in now.
There's your review, folks. Breaks
Yeah.
controllers. The next
Yeah.
Dark Souls.
I pressed my button so hard that I broke my controller playing this game.
Yeah, I for the final boss, I fully had like in pain hands, like they had been clenched around a controller for so long in fear. That's like I felt so triumphant finishing it. I was just there like, yeah, I feel good for this. This was not easy. I love it when there's a game like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, we've gone on so long. We should probably wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to touch on that we haven't?
Please buy this game. Everyone listening, everyone with a passing interest in Prince of Persia, you know, uh, games like this don't come around often. For all of its confused elements, for all of the times it asks you to upgrade stats, like this, it's still a very passionate project with so much to offer. And Prince of Persia fans have kind of already written it off because it's 2D and because it's not the Prince we knew, because it's Metroidvania. Like, this is as much of a Prince of Persia game as Prince of Persia has ever been. This is what you've been asking for. Go get it.
It would be very silly to pass up on a great game just because it's not the game you wanted it to be.
That's silly enough. But this is Prince of Persia.
Yeah,
Like this
you're
is
right.
it.
Yeah, like it's one thing with like Suicide Squad not being the next Arkham because also Suicide Squad seems like it's probably bad. But this is a very good Prince of Persia game.
Yep.
Like it's a very good game and it's a very good Prince of Persia game. And we've talked about it plenty, but the shadow marker is better than rewind.
Oh,
It's
100%.
just a better, more interesting mechanic.
Yep, agreed.
So yeah, great game. Your review is up on the site now. Tell us again what your score was.
4 out of 5.
Very good. That review is linked down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's the gamer, no space.